Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Monday's edition of National Matters. When it comes to this program, you know that we are dealing with a nation. My guest in the studio is not a stranger, is part of CAMNET Studios from the days of the opposition to now. And Mr. Kawana, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Pastor, and it's always a pleasure to be home.
I just want to say, when we are dealing with national matters, my dear viewers, if you do not agree with my guest, you have no reason at all to speak derogatory languages or to despise. This is a program where I cherish my guests, and their views are very important to the nation. And also, I want to say thank you to all of you CAMNET viewers that has been there for us. Mr. Kawana, tell me how your day was. Mine was quite hot today, and by the special grace of God, it's night. I'm feeling a little bit composed.
Well, I was... it's the usual Mondays, very busy, very involving. Today we were at Mulungushi International Conference Center, and in the afternoons we had a series of meetings. And it has been a good day, bringing a lot of joy and sadness. Sadness, Pastor, I want to start by conveying on behalf of my minister, sincere condolences to the family of the late Mr. Patrick Nkama, the radio presenter at United Radio. Mr. Nkama is one of those seasoned presenters and media personalities and an interviewer. You know, in our days, when we appear for interviews, sometimes our young interviewers look at interviews as a platform to embarrass your guests and to be argumentative, and without realizing that the reason interviews are conducted is to bring out the information.
Absolutely.
And bring out the concerns of the public and bring information to the public that is usable to the public. Mr. Nkama was such a man that when you had an interview with him, the information you bring out is the information that the public are looking forward to. Just like when we come here, the kind of questions that you put before us are questions that the people out there are asking, and you work as a vessel to channel the questions, and the people get the answers.
Absolutely.
And we heard of the demise of Mr. Nkama, and we are saddened to have lost a good man like him. The minister conveys her sincere condolences to the family, and she basically sent me to say to the family that she wishes them God's strength during this very trying period, and may the soul of Mr. Nkama rest in peace. I opened by saying the day was joyous, but at the same time sad. Joyous because the long story of Pamela Chisumba, the Airtel money agent young lady that was abducted, kept going on, and the nation was worried. Prayers were conducted, and there was, we were not knowing where she was. Police were actively pursuing the matter, and they kept updating the nation and assuring the nation that she was alive, and that one day the perpetrators or the abductors will be brought to book. And we thank God that by the mercy of God today, herself and 12 other girls have been found alive. I wish I could say alive and well, but I think it suffices to just say they are alive. And police have taken them to a medical facility to ensure that they undergo medical checkups, because what we hear is that the girls were quite weak and dehydrated, seemingly suggesting that, from the report I saw on your news, that they were fed once a week. and they were not in a very good shape. We pray for their stability. We pray for their minds as they undergo counseling. It has been a horrific period.
I'm telling you.
And we thank God that it so happened today, because you see the way God operates. The abductors may have thought that they've gotten away with the crime. But today, God made it in such a way that they forgot to lock the door. And one of the ladies not came out, but escaped, and went to knock on the neighbor's door. And the young man, and him I want to pay particular tributes to.
That's right.
And recognition as a national hero. The young man, Robbie Chitambo, from Chalala. This is a young man who, after the girl went to him and asked for help, he had the, I would rather call it audacity, to jump over the wall fence, and without minding what he would find there, he just armed himself with an axe. And when he got into the yard, as from the story he gave on your news, he found the abductors there, and one of them disappeared in thin air. Now that would have scared him, but he chose not to be scared, but instead concentrated on going in the house, despite meeting what he described as a shrine, despite seeing what he described as charms, despite seeing a coffin, he still soldiered on to rescue the girls and push them over the wall fence one by one until he managed to rescue everyone. So to Mr. Robbie Chitambo, the young man, in this case, is our national hero, and called in the police, and the police later went on the scene, and investigations continue. Because we need to know who are these people? Who else are they working with? What motivated them to do this? There's already speculation about others having been killed and buried within the vicinity. All those are speculations that require official information coming from the police. So I would like to join the Inspector General of Police in urging the nation to remain calm as the police continue with the investigation and give us official information.
Absolutely.
Let me take the opportunity, Pastor, also to say that I noticed from social media feeds there's an outcry that why didn't ZNBC run it as a breaking news item when it was happening. And I think I just want through your medium to educate the nation that ZNBC is a national broadcaster. And it cannot break news that is not officially authenticated. And in this case, the authenticating authority is the Zambia police. And not until they get an official position of the Zambia police, they can't break the news. It is different from private sector. Yourselves can break the news. It is different from private media houses. But for a national broadcaster, the rules demand that official authentication is done. And therefore, they tried to get the official information from the police, but the police were busy at the scene. And the Inspector General hinted that he was going to address the media. And not until after he addressed the media that they got the official story, and now were able to run the story in their news. But it couldn't run as breaking news. So I seek to beg the indulgence of our citizens out there to understand that ZNBC does not break news like that, because it has a responsibility as a flagship national carrier on behalf of the country. And therefore, anything that is not officially authenticated cannot run as breaking news.
Well, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Kawana. I must thank our journalists because Camnet journalists were the first on the scene, and they managed to take every information that they could, and even by the time we're also being told by our team that this is what has happened, we just kept our cool. But like you said, as a private media, we are out there to let the people know. Yes. We just verify the information. When they knew this is Pamela, this is our friends, and they certified the information, Camnet was at liberty to break the news, and we are so thankful. That leads me to national matters. Mr. Kawana, the budget.
Yes, sir.
I'll leave that to Dr. Abasoka on Thursday. I'm sure he's going to handle that. I'm not an economist, and I wouldn't like to mislead the nation that I've read and understood the contents of the whole budget. But there are certain points that I want to pick with you so that, like you rightly said, that the people out there are waiting for the information. What do you make of the budget that was presented this last Friday?
Well, the budget espouses intention of government, of how it wants to run the country's economy in the coming year, and what measures are being put in place, and how it intends to spend public money. And from the minister's presentation, it has shown where the money will be spent. So, for example, money will be spent to ensuring that there's money put aside for retirees, to ensure that when you retire, within a maximum period of 90 days, you get your pension. Whereas in the past, people stayed for many years on end without getting their pension. Majority of our people ended up dying without getting their pension. Now, this government has made it a point that once you retire, within 3 months, you must have been paid all your dues. And that has been catered for in the budget to ensure that our retirees, not just those in the public sector, but also those working in the local council. And that is why the superannuation fund also is being looked at to ensure that even those that work in the councils across the country are treated the same. Within 3 months of their retirement, they must be able to get their money. This budget also speaks to the farmers. The small-scale farmers, there was apprehension that, for example, the FISIP program, in light of the IMF supported program, the FISIP will be a casualty and it will be done away with. To the contrary, the FISIP continues and is more enhanced in what we now refer to as a comprehensive agriculture support program. And we have enhanced the FISIP, and we have by the close of this year, we are bringing on board more numbers, bringing the number to about 900 farmers by the close of this year. And by next year, Pastor, we will have 1.3 million beneficiaries. Now, the FISIP has been designed in the past where it was just a question of distributing fertilizer and seed. But we have seen a drop in terms of the yield. If you look at the difference between a small-scale farmer and a commercial farmer, you find that in 1 hectare, a commercial farmer may be able to produce, for argument's sake, 10 tons of produce, while the small-scale farmer produces 1.5 to 2 tons. Same 1 hectare piece of land. Now, this has been necessitated by the absence of extension programs. It is not a question of just distributing the farm products, the farming products. It is a question of sitting down with our farmers, educating them how to plant, what sort of seed to plant in a given climatic area, and also how to apply the fertilizer, when to apply the fertilizer in order for us to achieve a good yield. So in this budget, it has been provided for that we're going to employ more extension officers and capacitate them so that more farmers are able to access extension programs. And with the access of the extension programs, we envision that we are going to have a better yield. Currently, we're trying to look at 5 to 7 tons of produce from the same 1 hectare. And it will go up as we move on with the program. So the poor farmers have been spoken to in this budget. The retirees have been spoken to in this budget. This budget continues to speak. It is a people-sensitive program that is speaking to every sector of our country and economic facet. It is also a budget that has spoken to the young people, the students in public institutions. You know that at some point, the meal allowance was taken away from the students. It was abolished. In this budget, we have ensured that we bring back the meal allowance. And I think you saw from the demonstrations on Saturday by the university students in showing solidarity and gratitude for the resumption of the meal allowance. They stated clearly that you out there look at it as a meal allowance. But to us as students, it's actually a living allowance. It does more than just feed us. It is the same money we use to pay for our young brothers and sisters' education and their needs. So for us, it is a living allowance. And they are very grateful that this government has decided to bring back the living allowance. The private sector also has been given various incentives in their various departments of the economy, so that it rejuvenates and excites levels of productivity to heighten. Because what we want is to create an environment where the private sector thrives, and in thriving, it will expand, because then there will be investment and reinvestment. And with that expansion comes the jobs. We want many jobs for our young people, but these jobs have to be driven by the private sector. And for the private sector to create these jobs, they require certain incentives that can help them. And coming from a COVID era, where they recorded a number of huge losses, the Minister of Finance has provided for a various number and forms of incentives for the private sector to help them ramp up their productivity so that they can have an opportunity to be able to expand and create the much needed jobs. So this budget is speaking to every section of the economy, including the social sector, to ensure that development is driven, and not only for the people, but by the people. Hence, the incoming of the CDF at an expanded posture. You have seen that we moved CDF in this year's budget to 25.7 million, and now we are moving it to 28 million in the next year's budget. Some are saying, but look, you have not expended the budget. You have not used the money in this year's budget. Granted, there are difficulties, there were teething problems that have been identified. The issue is not disbursement. The issue was the uptake, the utilization. So the utilization was hampered by approval procedures, which were mainly concentrated in Lusaka. And the Minister of Finance is on record stating clearly that we are relooking the approval procedures to ensure that they are taken close to home as possible, so that Lusaka plays very minimum role in terms of approving when it comes to the CDF.
According to the, that's another hot issue, Mr. Kawana. According to the minister's acknowledgement, only 10% of this budget was accessed in the CDF expenditure. And much of it has been alluded to monstrous conditions to access that fund. Because if I invite you for lunch, I know you're hungry, and I say, Mr. Kawana, please come for lunch. Then you have to say, show me your age and your passport. Please, I need the confirmation by your wife that you've been allowed to come for lunch. All those things. And
the sworn affidavit from the court.
And the affidavit from the court. Then you come and have lunch. I think
well, yes, granted,
those conditions, Mr. Kawana.
Yes, granted, those conditions, there were conditions that required that projects are approved in Lusaka. And these projects are being proposed from all over the country. And that created a delayment. But in terms of disbursement, we are on course. We have disbursed over 3 billion kwachas. And in the first quarter, CDF disbursement from the Ministry of Finance was at 25%. In the second quarter, it was at 50%. We are in the third quarter, and it is at 75%. Clearly showing a trajectory that as we get to the close of the year, we will be at 100%. So disbursement is not a problem. The problem now was the uptake in terms of getting the projects moving and getting the approvals done. The Ministry of Local Government also moved quickly to approve projects. And you have seen that activity has started in earnest in all the constituencies. And now there's activity on the ground. But the uptake was slow. But having identified the bottlenecks, and this is now what we are refining. So what you will see is that in the next year, it will be busy starting now, all throughout this year and next year, because number one, what the minister has done is been gracious enough to allow that the constituencies will not be asked to return the money that they have not used in this year's budget, because the norm would be if you have not utilized your money in the financial year, it goes back to Treasury. But this time around, it will not go back to Treasury. So the 25 million that has been released will be in the constituency and begin to work on those projects. And the 28 million that is coming will still go in the constituency to continue to work on the projects. So the bottlenecks have been identified. And now that they've been identified, the approval system is being streamlined to ensure that we bring it close home as possible to avoid Lusaka being at the epicenter of it.
What is this assumption that it's not true that the money was released? It's a political gimmick or statement, because not many people have accessed, again, the CDF, that before you started using the UPND budget, there was that budget for PF, and now there is this one, but money was not dispersed. But you are saying that 3 billion has been released to cooperatives around the...
To constituencies.
To constituencies.
Cooperatives are only but a function in the CDF.
Okay.
The CDF is taking care of many other facets within it. You have got schools bursaries, for example, for those in boarding schools. You've got cooperatives, you've got empowerment funds in there. So the monies have been released. So the Ministry of Finance, which is a custodian of the money, has released the money. And right now, if you check with local government and you check with the councils, they are sitting with the money. It is not with the Minister of Finance. So it has been released. So accessing it is a question of the projects that were proposed being undertaken. So those projects delayed because of the approval rate. But even that approval rate was worked on, and it continues being worked on. But going forward into next year, we are now going to a stage where we are making sure that even that approval is not done at the epicenter. we have to decentralize par excellence to ensure that even the approvals are done in the provinces and the districts for a quicker response. So yes, there were bottlenecks, but they've been identified and they're being worked on. So you will see a lot of activity around CDF and its funding during the close of this quarter, of the fourth quarter, and now going forward full blast in the following year.
I want to understand from you, Mr. Kawana, the cry for tax-free incentives to the mines that already have what it takes have been granted to them. And what would you explain to the nation about giving incentives to local people like myself so that I can grow and develop and employ people?
The minister has taken the liberty to give incentives to the entire spectrum of the private sector, and that includes the mines. And that includes people like yourselves who are players in the private sector. So what you need to do is to read through the budget. You will be able to see incentives within your sector. You will be able to see incentives, for example, in the tourism industry. Despite giving waivers to a selected number of countries, if you bring in equipment and vehicles to do with tourism, they're coming in tax-free. All those are incentives to ensure that we grow the sector. There are incentives in agriculture. There are incentives in media. So the minister took the liberty to ensure that he incentivizes the private sector so that it picks up quickly, because the sooner we get the private sector productive, the better we get to a point of having jobs.
Just on the media, the Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Before I love Mr. Kawana, I must love myself. Now, on behalf of the media, is there any deliberate budget which people in the media fraternity, because I can tell you, much as we want to push the news to let the people know of what you are doing, what you are not doing, we've got limitations. For example, transportation, fuel, it's a cost to any private media. The only people that may have it good is ZNBC, because it's government. From time to time, even when it's performing at its worst, it has been bailed out, not only by you, but governments in previous leaderships. But nobody knows how much Pastor Chuba is spending on the journalists, on fuel. Nobody takes care. All they say is, Cabinet, there is news here. But how we get there? We cannot be like the police in some quarters where they say we don't have fuel. We have to go. The question is there any deliberate budget for us in this budget which was announced? Is there some cash, Mr. Kawana, where tomorrow or tonight after this interview, I can sit down and bring my proposal to you, the minister?
Well, there is money in the budget for empowerment. There is money that has been provided for the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission, for example. And you as a private entity are at liberty to go and access that money from the Citizens Economic Empowerment. For example, you want to buy more sophisticated equipment and you want to buy vehicles and so on. You are able to go to CEC and other institutions of lending to be able to access money. What the government does is to make the environment better for you, to ensure that you access cheap money so that you are able to flourish as private media. And also the other thing that government has done is to ensure that government business and quasi-government institutions must at all times also advertise in the private media. Because previously it has been that government business and government, quasi-government institutions who only advertise, for example, in the Times of Zambia and Daily Mail and ZNBC, and that revenue is just playing around within the public sector. And the private sector is led to dry out. But now we have opened it. So the the government departments, quasi-government institutions are now at liberty to advertise on your platforms so that you generate the income that you need to be able to run, to be able to pay your salaries, to be able to buy your equipment, your vehicles. And it is from that release of the business to you that you can now even put in your proposal to CEC, for example, to say our projected revenue is this much, and we're asking for this loan so that it helps us to be where we are and we'll be able to pay back. So ours is to ensure that the environment is good for you in the private sector to thrive, and that the minister and this government has ensured that we continue to do that, to make an economy that works not only for the people that are in government and those connected to them, but it works for all Zambians, including Camlet Television.
I must commend you for that. If there is that kind of deliberate planning by your government, I must commend you. You and I, Mr. Kawana, come a long way. When UPND was not allowed to be on other platforms, you found solace in Camnet television station. And the argument I put up was that me, I'm a pastor. I should not discriminate UPND, PF, NAREP from that angle. And we have to cover for everyone. But the tendency has been, when people are in the opposition, they use the private media a lot. They use the private media a lot. But should they go into power, they even forget the radar they used to go on top. Now we become enemies. Any negative covering of the news, you are labeled as an enemy of the state. Yes, I don't know why it works like that.
That has been like that in the past. But you will agree with me, Pastor, that in this administration we have changed the strides and we have raised the bar, raised the standard. You've aired news that on a normal day can be seen to be negative news against the government. You have never received a call from my minister.
No.
You have never received a call from my permanent secretary. You have never received a letter from my ministry. Why? Because number one, the president has said, allow the private media to thrive. Number two, my minister has been very emphatic to ensure that the private media is allowed to operate freely without any iota of intimidation. That is why in the past we found solace in Camnet, because many other stations we would go to, they would not allow us space, because the government then would threaten them that if you dare host the UPND, then you're in trouble with us. They would use IBA, for example, to crack a whip against such a media house. Since we took office, you have never heard of any media house that the IBA has harassed or closed down or threatened. Nothing. Because we know what we went through. And we wouldn't want opposition today to go through what we went through. And therefore, we have let it free for everybody. Let people express themselves. Let people conduct business freely. I would take the opportunity even to announce to the nation now that on Wednesday, for example, my minister is going around private media houses to familiarize herself with the operations of the private media, to ensure that she gives them the assurance and reassurance that they are at liberty to host programs and participants without checking with the government first, because this government is not a prefect. My minister is not a prefect of the media fraternity, that before you host anybody, you must check with us if it is okay to host such a person. You go ahead and host. There were issues a few weeks ago that were rife in the country to do with homosexuality, for example. And I sat home and I was watching a wonderful program here where you sat with Dr. Mumba and you freely espoused the issues and delved into the issues, deep into the issues, and spoke, your minds about the issues. You did not receive a phone call. But I remember that each time we appeared, even here, at the risk of getting cabinet closed, we would be here sitting and you would get a phone call from the powers that be. Why are you hosting that person? You will not get such kind of a phone call from this administration because the president himself, my minister herself, my permanent secretary themselves are true believers in media freedoms. And we also know that we rode on the back of the private media to put our message across for the Zambian people to accept us to be in office today. So we will not stifle the private media, we will not threaten the private media, we will not intimidate the private media. So you are free. I'm sure you are happy that there's a breeze of fresh air politically from the time we took office. And I can assure you that this will go on. And I know that my minister, as she's visiting the private media across the country, she's starting with Lusaka on Wednesday. This is one of the places she will visit. And I can almost preempt that one of the things she will tell you is to give you an assurance that the government will not intimidate you and the government will not threaten you.
Well, I'm so grateful to hear that, Mr. Kawana, and I will be waiting, and my wife and I, our team, will seek your help, because I can tell you something. One of the reasons why governments fail in Africa, you don't disseminate the information. People don't tend to get the whole truth, you know. And we are so grateful that by the special grace of God, Camnet TV has risen to such prominence, not only in this nation, but outside. When you see the reports that we get, the comments which are sent to this station about our coverage, it is so encouraging. And those are some of the things where you may not find it in that media house or that media house, but like you're saying, that you've given us the freedom and the liberty to cover such news. Just as a sider, Camnet TV yesterday or the day before yesterday covered the youths. The deputy provincial chairperson, I think, who was saying that he wants to let the people of Zambia know that he will beat anybody who speaks against President Hakainde Hichilema. And we have that on record as Camnet. Hasn't he heard that the president is against Kadarism? Why do you allow, why would that man issue such threats?
Well, I think these are some of the consequences or rather ramifications that come with freedom of speech. From my side, it is constraining for me to comment because that is not the government position. The government position was ably espoused by the President of the Republic of Zambia in as far as Kadarism is concerned. Even the UPND Party Secretary General is on record espousing the same in as far as Kadarism is concerned. And when you have such utterances being given, since the day it was spoken, I've been watching the news every day on Camnet to see whether you will get a reaction from the Party Secretary General, and you haven't done that. So as government, we
haven't followed him to ask him to say what about
so when you hear such, you know, the party youth are saying, oh, Kambapa president, Kukata, Unyata, and so on, we expect that you will now follow the SG and say, Rumba Unyata want. But for us as government, our position is very clear.
That's right.
And the government works with the police. Those that find it enticing enough for themselves to insult the president, to insult anybody, are dealt with using the law.
In fact, let me say that I'm a firm believer from the time of Dr. Kaunda. I'm a firm believer, and I'm on record, that if you don't respect the office of the president, it's like a child goes more public and starts announcing at never tatabara sundo bushiko. babed so yali ama blanket mumonate and yaba dad. Is that child normal? So when you disrespect the office of the president, you are disrespecting the nation. For example, President Chagwalongo, with all the mistakes that he could have made, the Zambian people, even yourself, I've never heard you speak any vulgar language against a former president and some government officials. But Zambians and also on social media, some people find it easy to insult the former president, to insult the current president, whether you don't like him or not. He's the president of the Republic of Zambia. So I don't know how it would take for us to inculcate in our culture that speaking against the president, whether it's wrong or right, you have no right to disrespect that office, you know. So that aside, for me, I'm a firm believer, and I take exception. Whoever says anything against adults, the office of the president or whatever, we can even cross lines. That's my position. But when you hear cadres saying, Wamena Zakamba against our president, will beat, I think you have an uphill battle to educate such people. I got the clip and I was supposed to forward it to my brother, Mr. Imenda, to say I need a comment from you. Now I forgot because we had a funeral and also yesterday was a service. However, you have an uphill battle to educate such people and to display ignorance at his level and position, though he's not a government official, to display such ignorance, it simply means that there are those people we say, umusungu tapata muntu bakapitao mulomo.
They're always remnants. Remember that cadreism was so entrenched in this country. We had arrived at a place where the cadres were the law unto themselves, and the police were nothing to cadres. So to change that completely, to take a 360 and change it completely, of course we are winning battles, but I agree with you that we have an uphill battle. We have a lot of sensitization to do from the opposition political parties to the ruling party, and everybody has a role to play, including yourselves as a clergy, have the role to play to continue sensitizing our people that we could differ in ideologies and political ideologies, minus degrading ourselves to levels of disrespecting and insulting. I think you have seen even the way the opposition in this country conduct themselves and the kind of issues, the way they disrespect the president and insult the president. The problem with that is that because the cadreism was so entrenched, and when you begin to do that with your newly found freedom, you forget that the way the human rights work are that where my rights end, yours begin. Where yours end, mine begin. And when I'm out there and saying what I am saying carelessly against a person, this is not only a president of the republic, but he's also a president of the political party. And the people that he leads in that political party, especially the young people with all the veganism that they have, are also emotional at the same time. So our role as government, and you as a clergy, and all of us as a nation, is to ensure that we continue to sensitize our people. That yes, we can differ, but there is no need to insult. For example, if the Minister of Finance has presented his budget, and you don't agree with it, present your alternative budget. We did that as UPND when we did not agree with the budget that the MMD government then presented. We went to Pamonzi Hotel and presented our alternative political budget.
Was it taken?
No. You see, when you're an opposition political party, you're a government in waiting. So you create an environment that is alternative. So what you're basically saying to the people of Zambia is that this is what they have told you, this is what they intend to do. if you gave us an opportunity, this is how we would do it. So instead of me saying, for example, this budget is so useless, it's not even worthy of the paper it is written on. Mine is to say, oh, that's your budget. This is mine. This is how you're going to do this? I think I can do this way. That's opposition. Those are checks and balances. But what you're seeing now is outright insults. Opposition political leaders with impunity insulting the president. And again, when they are arrested, because it is against the law. So when you do that, you injure the law. And when you injure the law has to take its full course on you. And when the law begins to take full course on these people, and then they begin to cry that actually we have a dictator in State House because they have been arrested. But they forget that they are being arrested as a ramification of their own utterances. And people ought to be responsible for their utterances. So I agree with you that we have an uphill battle, and all of us have a role to play. Government has a role to play. The church has a role to play. We as parents in our homes have a role to play. Because some of these children who are on social media and they type these insults actually come from our homes. Absolutely. So there's nothing stopping me from talking to my son, talking to my daughter and saying, this is so irresponsible of you. You can't do that. So it must start from the home, then to the church, then to the community, then to the government, so that all of us begin to live in a harmonious society where we say we could either agree or disagree, or in fact, agree to disagree.
In fact, you've rightly said so, Mr. Kawana. Yesterday, my wife and I went to Chaisa, ground there. We were watching Camnet Stars play the Morning Stars in Chaisa. But where we sat, just up above us, were these youths that were insulting the referee, insulting the mother, insulting whoever players, and telling their own players to say, if you lose, we will do this to you. So the insults were too much. I called the people who I thought were in charge of security. I said, look, me, I'm a pastor. This language is not sitting well with me. Can you remove this? They insisted. But afterwards, again, they went on abusing the people. I stood to address them. And I said, young people, this just shows that the parents where you come from, they taught you this language. Because you cannot say this to that referee, to the landsman, whatever bad you see, this is coming from your parents. And the boy says, Nanga mwafakamu bwanji wa tate wangu. I said, it's coming from your...
You're an ambassador of your home.
Your home, because my children cannot issue such things. And afterwards, they calmed down because I involved their parents. Yes. To say this is a reflection of your parents, because
similarly, when we engage as a nation in activities that involve us insulting our head of state, for example, we are beaming to the rest of the world that this is a culture in Zambia. We are insulters, and this is what Zambia is about. It is an insulters nation. So it is important that we conduct ourselves in a manner that even the people that are watching us from outside look at Zambia as a marvel, look at Zambia as an example, where democracy thrives, that despite having differences in ideologies, in political stances, people continue to coexist and people continue to argue level-headedly, minus going to a point of insulting each other, because usually what follows an insult is violence. From insulting, you get physical. So you really don't want to go that way. You've seen already what is happening from what we're discussing here. Here is the opposition insulting the president, and here are the young people for the ruling party offering to go and beat them. So you see that insults breed violence. So it is important that the insults are taken away.
But this seems to be the trend, Mr. Kawana.
Which we are coming against.
From the time our father, may so rest in peace, from the time our father, Dr. Kaunda, lost power to President Chilwa, may so rest in peace, the MMD came on scene on the same platform. And I've also been a firm believer, Mr. Kawana, that what you do as government of the day, others will do it for you. You know, for example, if President HH was on record of going for independence celebrations at State House, going for other functions, being a leader, like any other leader, people would have said, you know, he led the way. But where the opposition feels, I can't go to State House, I can't, you remain opposed. This has been from the time of MMD, the time of PF, all these, as we sit and observe. But for me as a pastor, I would tell you, Mr. Kawana, there is a word which God has spoken, it's a law. It's as powerful as the force of gravity. A man will reap what he sows. Even those in the opposition, hoping to take over from President HH, if they become reckless and say anything they want to say on that man, assuming President HH is off, they come, they will have the field full of the seeds they had been planting.
They will have a taste of their own medicine.
Absolutely.
But you see also, Pastor, it's important for us to recognize that national events are driven by sitting governments. Mm-hmm. And the first card you play is an extension of an invitation to attend such ceremonies. Mm-hmm. And you know that in the past, especially the very recent past, under the leadership of President Edgar Lungu, we had gotten to a point where we would not even be invited. President Hakainde would not be invited for some of these functions. You do recall that one incident that I personally was close to was the funeral of the late Dr. Kaunda. And there was no invitation to President Hakainde to attend. And there was a statement from government saying, no, but we have taken the invitation. The invitation was not there.
Actually, I must attest to that.
Then they produced the invitation and said, this is the invitation we sent to President Hakainde. And I said, yeah, but you are even vindicating us because you have it. It's not with us, it's with you. It was not extended. But exactly what you are saying, that when you do bad things to others, bad things will be done to you. Mm. So do unto others as you would want them do unto you. Mm. What this president has decided to do is to not to do that which was done to him, mm-hmm. but to show them that you should have done this to me. So when we had a funeral here for whose funeral was that?
Dr. Rupiah Banda?
Yeah, President Rupiah Banda, may he so rest in peace. The government made sure that President Lungu is invited and President Lungu is facilitated to be part of it. Mm. Why? The government would have thought, or the players would have thought, mm-hmm. that because we were not invited for Dr. Kaunda's funeral, mm-hmm. it follows therefore that even for President Banda's funeral, we were not invited. But the president was very emphatic. Where is my brother? Mm. Even when the funeral program was being drawn, when he was briefed, he made sure that after the briefing on the preparations of what they're doing, the instruction was go and brief my brother. Mm-hmm. So they would, after briefing the president, they go and brief President Lungu. Mm. So it shows you that he wants, and he's on record of saying, I do not want to do to people what they did to me. Mm-hmm. How many times was this president arrested in opposition? Have you seen a single day that President Lungu has been harassed by the police or arrested? Never. Because he will not do to others what they did to him, but he will show them his stance and style of leadership is to fight evil, but with love. Mm. Not evil for evil. He fights evil with love. So that which was not done to him or was done to him, he does it in the opposite to show that this is how it should have been. We are getting closer to the independence celebration. You will see that invitations will be extended to all for the opposition to come and attend.
Why do you leave the church out?
No, the church is always invited.
Okay, no, I was just pulling
The
your
church
leg.
is always invited. And I know that at Cabinet Office, they will ensure that the church, the opposition, even those National Neka Party, they are given cards. We really know that Uyu is the president, the secretary general, the vice president.
The treasurer.
Yeah, but you have to recognize he's registered, it's an opposition political party, extend an invitation.
Well, I'm grateful to that. I wish I could have my president HH here and my president President Lungu here to see where the differences are coming from. But that is wishful thinking, where we could bring
I can confirm with you that there are no differences between President Lungu and President Hakainde Hichilema. I cannot speak for President Lungu, but I can confidently speak for President Hakainde Hichilema that he has no bone to chew with President Lungu.
No, what I'm saying...
And also, you will notice that when it comes to these political figures, the problems are driven by us, the tukandides of the presidents.
The ones below the
president. Are the ones that want to make it look like it is impossible. But when you sit down to talk to President Lungu, you sit down to talk to President Hakainde, you find that really there are no issues there. But it's us, the officers, the functionaries, that would want to make it look impossible. And the VIK and the you see? Because they know that they're in trouble with the law.
Yeah.
So they want to hide in President Lungu and want to say that we are being harassed. It's not us they are up to. They are coming for you. It is you they want. But it is them that are in trouble with the law. So if you are in trouble with the law, just go and answer. There's no need to drag the man into your issues. So this is where the issues are arising, where some of them that are before the law want to use that as an opportunity to say, because I served under President Lungu, it therefore follows that the one they want is President Lungu and not me. How can they want President Lungu when it is you who was in charge of what went wrong? It is you that was signing for what went wrong. So I think what is important is let people answer for what they did.
Are there Kabwalalas in UPND who hide under the name of we are in power? You guys were thieves, you used to steal, but even them, they've got issues. Are there some that you know? I always ask you this from a different angle.
Yes.
But
and I always tell you the same thing.
As we are in the public domain, we seem to know little information here and there.
You seem to avoid because you see, none of you have real issues. Perception is created, and then we will run with it. For example, they'll create a perception that Garingombo is buying 150 Land Cruisers. That's his deal. It's corruption. He's getting a cut. But the minister doesn't procure. The minister is not in charge of procurement. But a perception is deliberately being created that the minister is procuring 150 Land Cruisers.
No, that is a different case. Me, I'm talking about somebody coming to say, Pastor Chiluba, do you know that Mr. THABO, KAWANA and I went in this deal, and here are the documents. But he has stopped picking up my phone calls. Can I use Cabinet to expose him? And we say, no. I'm just giving as an example where there is even evidence.
I can tell you, Pastor, that you will not have such kind of revelations in this administration. I am very positive. Why? Because an administration follows the leadership style of the top man. And this president is not cheap. This president is not corrupt. And this president does not condone that kind of behavior. So you will not hear statements from Hakainde Hichilema telling us as his functionaries in government that, you know, guys, uwomba mwibala kulia mwibala, but that we tell that mwibile kumone mbuto. You never hear President Hakainde saying that. President Hakainde is very clear, he doesn't mince his words. Do not steal public funds. And if you are caught stealing public funds, you're on your own. No one will protect you. And the instruction is the same to the law enforcement agencies. Pursue corruption of the past, pursue corruption of the present, and pursue corruption in prevention for the future.
Let me tell you, Mr. Kawana, let me be as open as openness can be. There are a lot of dirty games being played in some quarters, but people are scared to expose. If they know, oh, Mr. Kawana is close to the president, close to the minister. You see, unfortunately, again, having served President Kaunda on a personal level, President Chiluba on a personal, all these presidents, they tend to regret and realize after they've left office. When they are sitting there, you can go and brief somebody and say, sir, there is this. And somebody will say, no, bring evidence. I remember briefing somebody, I won't mention, one of the presidents. I said, sir, this one got $30,000 and it's credible, look at this. And the president said, Pastor, have you got evidence, you as a man of God? And I was scared because the people who got that man at the airport and everyone, they are the ones who said we're entitled to $5,000 each. When you have such things and you want to let Mr. Kawana know, you want to let the president know, and the evidence is asked from you, you would rather keep quiet. But when someone leaves office, that's when you hear, oh, that one was corrupt, that one was corrupt. I am simply saying, let me put it again. I put it to you last time. Yes. Mark what I said to you each time we sit, Mr. Kawana. The Bible says the heart of man is corrupt above all things. Only God can know the heart of a person. To think that UPND, members of parliament, or governors, or the players are clean, it's a lie. And to think that all PF members were clean and what? From UNIP. From all this, God has said it, the heart of man is corrupt. You may not see someone's corruption, but it's going on there. Now the people are too scared to just bring this. They will just say, we'll wait after the elections. If it doesn't come after the election, after 10 years, they will say, oh, you know, in 2022, there was this scandal. Why didn't you bring it there? So I'm just saying.
So, no, I hear you, I follow you. So two things. Number one, to think that everybody in the UPND administration is clean is not correct. It follows, therefore, that to think that everybody in UPND is dirty is also not correct.
In every government.
Yes. It is a conclusion that is, I'm trying to run away from saying is not backed by evidence. But what I'm saying is that the first thing is that we cannot conclude where there is no rationale. And number two, if there is a regime where people are so free to expose scandals, it is this one. That is why you find that we are always on our toes clearing the air. All these things of 150 Land Cruisers, all those are scandals being exposed, and then you find that there's no scandal at all. No, but this one got fertilizer deal for $50 million. Then there's no scandal at all. So it shows you that the freedom of the people is there, they're able to. But the fact that they are not able to bring out concrete things or really things is because those are not there. And they are not there, Pastor, because of the type of leadership that President Hakainde Hichilema is practicing. It's follow the leader. Follow the leader. This leader is a man of integrity. This leader does not condone corruption. This leader does not condone taking away from especially the poor. And that is why even from the espousal of his budget, remember that the budget is for the president. That is why the Minister of Finance, when he goes to Parliament, his opening remarks are that I am a bearer of a message from His Excellency the President. He's the owner of the budget. If you look at this budget, you and me can safely conclude here that it is a pro-poor budget. Why? Because it is one that is heavy on the social sectors to ensure that it bridges the gap between the poor and the rich. That's why we have more people coming on to social cash transfer. We have an expanded program in the schools, feeding program in the rural areas to ensure that our young people go to school and they are fed and they are motivated to go to school. To ensure that the least person in the rural, most remote part of our country is sitting on a desk. Why? Because he cares for the people, especially the vulnerable. So the way he has led the country so far has created an environment where it is folly for anyone to want to behave corrupt. And he has also made it categorically clear that if you so wish to be corrupt, please go ahead. But you will be dealt with in accordance with the law. And remember, you are on your own. He took time to put together his cabinet and his permanent secretaries. And he said, I know that there's people, no, you are delaying, we want jobs, you want... And he cautioned, he said, you want to be my PS? You must be careful. If you sit where you are there and you see the former PSs and the kind of money they had and the kind of properties they had, and you are envying that lifestyle, and you think that when you come to work with me, you will also acquire the same. You have it wrong. Search your soul. He was very clear. You want to come and work with me, search your soul. Because when you come to work with me, you have come to serve the people. You will not take away from the people. No one will allow you.
But do you know that at times parents can be normal, but they raise a criminal?
Yes, that is normal, and that is why that statement is, that's why that statement is very qualified. When he says, if you are caught, you are on your own. Because he knows that not everybody will follow suit. So there are those remnants who may go a different route, but they must know that there is no comfort in them thinking that because they belong to his group, they will be shielded. No, sir.
Anyway, this issue, I am reminded there is a man in this nation, Mr. Kawana, because I've been close to him and I followed him from the time I was a young kid, and my brother was in the army, Brigadier General Chiluba, retired. He served under this man, and I call him a president who never was, Brigadier General Mianda. The nation do not know what they lost in that man. When you talk about integrity, being truthful, ask any soldier who served under General Brigadier Mianda. Those who are alive, they will tell you one thing, that that man was as straight as a Zescopo, whether in the army, whether as a minister or vice president, but because of his truthfulness. Like you said, we people down here, the reports they would present to the president about him. And even when he began his political party, the Heritage Party, to say, I want to do this, people misunderstood him with his village concept. But suffice to say that personally I call him a president who never was. He's gone into retirement, he doesn't issue statements whether wrong or right, it's just quiet.
Yeah, there are citizens like him that are inspirational. General Mianda is a person whose level of humility remains unprecedented. For a man who would be dropped from vice president of the country to minister of education, and continues to work diligently, and continues to be loyal to his president, and continues to give the Zambian people his best, shows you that it's not about the position, it's about the opportunity to serve. Regardless of the place you are put to serve, he will serve he did not worry about hierarchy. So he is a person who's from VIP, you know, when you're vice president, security around you, vehicles and so on, to a minister. And he started even driving himself. That humility is not seen easily in people. And it is also told that General Mianda is an officer who would go out and whatever resources he was given, he would retire.
Straight,
and if there was change, he would give it back. Now, I call that inspirational. Inspirational in that when you conduct yourself like that, you have young people that look up to you and they come to conduct themselves similarly. If you see the conduct of this president, it is in that fashion, ensuring that delegations, whenever he travels locally or abroad, in to avoid public expenditure. You see that the people that are working under him, just a few months ago, weeks, you saw what happened at the local government meeting. The mayor for Mongu was, I think he was supposed to be in Lusaka for 4 days, but he ended up being here for 2 days. He went back to Mongu and retired the money for 2 days. Why? Because of the predecessors, the likes of General Bianda, passing on the legacy to young people like the Mongu mayor, who is serving under President Hakainde Hichilema, who has shown by example that when he goes out, it's strictly for business. Number one, he will not stay out more than necessary. This president has gone to hold meetings. He has gone for trips abroad, where he is scheduled to come back maybe say 2 days. But what he should have done in 2 days, they finish in 1 day. The moment they're done, he says, let's go home, there's work to be done. And they start off. He will go to the UN, do his business there. Immediately he's done, let's go home, there's work to be done. We saw what was happening here. Ayakine pokuya ku UN kula magada full, musician, kuiliza vilimba, magboti cruise, what, money spent like no man's business. This president is on record saying, I don't need an impress to carry. What money are you carrying for what? Who told you I'm going shopping? I have work to do. When I go there, I work. When I'm done, I come back home immediately. On many occasions, this president has traveled back in the night, refusing to spend another day, another minute, another hour out there because he says, my work here is done. My real work is at home. And that is why you are seeing that things are beginning to change for the better. Because the one spearheading is a workaholic. And he will not spend extra kobo of public resources on unnecessary delegations. People are now talking, oh, but we work on Kalini, Akuya Bwanji, this one does not follow him. No. Everybody has a role to play. And when you move with this president, you have a role to play while he's going. If you have no role to play, you can't go for a joyride. He won't allow you. So this is the kind of leadership that we're talking about, that great men like General Mianda, great men like Hakainde Hichilema, great young men like the Mongu mayor. This is the Zambia we want.
Well, we are on national matters, and I'll come back from that and only encourage the president. I know he likes watching the program. If he's watching, my prayer, and you that are in the leadership, get busy working instead of talking about what happened to you, who did what to you. Get busy, because like you are saying, if President HH is not talking about it, even the people around, let's get busy and do the work. And one of the good things, last Sunday, one of the bishops who is my friend, was among the 40 bishops in Kenya when President Ruto came into power, and the First Lady, who is a strong believer, called the pastors at State House to pray. And one of the things that President Ruto said, because the president was gone out, Kenyatta, wanted Raila Odinga to win, and he was campaigning for him. And this man, everything was against him, but he stood on God.
Against all odds.
Against all odds. So he won the election. And the first thing he did was to appoint his predecessor to Great Lakes region. And when they asked him to say, no, forget about the campaign and all this, whatever we did to each other, those are politics, but he's my elder brother. That is the attitude I am praying and believing even here, that you that are around the president, please let's send that message of love. So that, and after President HH is through with his office, those that will come, whether you POD or another party, they should give respect to President HH. The mistakes you make, he's human. The things he will do right, thank him for that. And let's find somewhere who will break this case of making whoever you take over from becomes an enemy and the regime. And that is my prayer, Mr. Kawana. And
your prayer is already halfway answered, because speaking on behalf of President Hakainde Hichilema, the love is there. The respect is there. The recognition for his predecessor is there. So it is also incumbent upon people like yourselves who are close to President Lungu to be able to say...
And close to President
yes, you see, you are in between. You are close to President Lungu.
I speak to both.
You are close to President Hakainde. You are privileged that when you pick up the phone to dial President Hakainde's phone,
he answers.
He knows that it is you,
yes,
and he answers.
Absolutely.
And when he answers, he doesn't say, Nibanya. He will say, good evening, Pastor Chiluba.
He doesn't say, good evening, Pastor Chiluba. He always says, how are you, my pastor?
So, meaning that your name is saved in his phone.
Yes, yes.
You see that? So, it is incumbent upon people like you to one day take a drive to Ibex, pick up the former president, call President Hakainde and say, I'm coming for a drink. I'm with President Lungu. It is just people like you to do that.
That's a very good...
The moment you wait for officers like ourselves to do it, it will not be done.
That's a very good suggestion.
There's always a benefit we derive from the two not meeting. There's some benefit that we derive, Isakawarara, Makuruku. Okay? So a person like yourself, who is close to both men, it's very easy. You cannot move the president to Ibex, but you can move the former president from Ibex to community house.
Absolutely.
And say, I've come for tea. I'm with your brother.
Seeing that we live in a consultant's world, how much do you want me to pay you for that suggestion you have brought?
We'll discuss after the program.
You know, this is why I tell you, Mr. Kawana, that God should give President HH people who think like you. Not that I'm praising you because you are here. You and I talk off the TV station and when we are here. So people may not know. Just the way you project things, it is a source of an inspiration to me. And also, the president should realize that there is a leader in you, President HH, because once you have this love for everyone, opposition and what, and once you have this level-headedness, I want you to know that this country will be a better country to live in. Like you have said, President HH and I, we exchange notes, we phone, he sends me WhatsApp messages, and same with President Lungu. And there's never been a time with the two when I've found fault in the two of them. But around this...
atmosphere being created, the artificial atmosphere being created
by this,
suggests that there's animosity between the two.
Absolutely.
When in fact there is none.
Well, Mr. Kawana, there is two things before we open the lines, and I don't know why. My director, please put the lines there so that people can send their messages. Two things, Mr. Kawana. The kwacha is performing very well against the dollar. But when it comes to buying power, for example, I have 1,000 rands. Now 1,000 rands is not stronger than Zambian kwacha. our kwacha is stronger. What I will buy with 1,000 rands in South Africa and what I would buy with 1,000 kwacha here in Zambia are two different things and quantities. I said this the other time I wanted to buy grapes in one of the shops. I won't say which shop. I wanted to buy grapes. I discovered that in South Africa when we were there with my wife, the same grapes, same package, they were cheaper, very, very cheap than what we find here. Now here, the kwacha is stronger, but I'm buying more in terms of grapes. And nobody can tell me it's because of duty, because those things, when you load them in the truck, you declare, and I know these shops, they don't just go on the street and buy grapes. They've got farms where they order them. And so we are providing foreign exchange to other nations like South Africa. Why is the kwacha strong against the dollar? But when it comes to buying the things here, poverty still hits us. It's not, you have 500 kwacha. As a family man, you can't buy anything to take you for 2 weeks. What would you say to that? I know I'm not an economist, I'll leave that to Awazoka, but I'm just bringing the fact of the poverty which is prevalent down there.
The buying power of our kwacha, remember that we are in a liberalized economy. And we are also an import-dependent nation. Like you have rightly put, that most of the products we have in our country are brought in from outside. There are products that are got from within the country. There are grapes that you buy that come in from South Africa, and there are grapes that you buy that are grown within the country. Now, we must also understand the economies of scales here. In South Africa, they have their own economy, and they have their own, for example, inflation rate and their exchange rate, and it relates to their buying power. The same here. Now, because we are an import-oriented country, sometimes the things we bring into the country attract a higher sale point because of what is involved to bring them into the country. The issues of duties and so on, and transportation and storage and so on. But at the end of the day, we are operating in a liberalized economy. And because we're in a liberalized economy, the government cannot involve itself in price setting. The government will have to make the environment and the economy conducive for the private sector to thrive and play. So ours is to ensure that we arrest the runaway inflation, as we have done, from 24%, which was basically runaway inflation, to about 9% now. And also to bring the exchange rate to a stable quantum and begin to lower it further. So that now entails that even the products in the shops will begin to go down. And they have. So you have seen, for example, in chain stores, and I have taken your crew, ZNBC, Camnet, Diamond, I've taken them round to ShopRite to go and demonstrate how prices are coming down of selected goods. So when we get the economy fixed, even the prices will begin to come down. Because when you outprice yourself in an economy such as ours, which is liberalized, you lose your own business. You do that at your own peril. So you have seen that since the stabilization of the exchange rate, and also since the bringing down and the arresting of the inflation rate and bringing it down to a single digit, prices have begun to fall. So if you go to ShopRite today, you find that cooking oil has reduced, sugar has reduced, dairy meal has reduced, salt has reduced, soap has reduced. And this reduction is only but round one. The reduction will continue. So as we fix the economy, the prices also begin to come down. What was important was to set the country on a correct trajectory, that the fundamentals are right. Then the market responds. And this is what is happening now, that the market has begun to respond. So the shops in the communities out there realize that if I keep my prices high, the people will not buy from me. They'll go and buy in Pick and Pay, ShopRite, and so on. So if I want to trap them, instead of them going to the big stores, they should buy from my little store. I must ensure that the price is right. So because we are doing what is right, the market forces are also coming into play, and the private sector is beginning to respond. Hence, the price is coming down.
Yeah, that I respect. Maybe what I mean to say, Mr. Kawana, is that is there a government wing? I know the Consumer Protective Organization, they are one of the organizations that are supposed to do that. For example, this bottle of water. I know, it's just an example. In South Africa, it costs R1. You and I go to South Africa. I know this is R1. But because I import it and bring it here, I peg this same bottle of water at R5. Where is the justification of me saying this is a liberalized economy? Are there people who say, look, okay, you imported this, this is the tax you paid and what? But you are paying in bulk of what you brought. You can't sell this from South Africa, it's R1, you bring it here, it's R5. And no justification should be there.
So
that
when the government does that, it amounts to interference. It amounts to price controls. So the meaning of a liberalized economy is that it is incumbent upon yourself to be able to know how you will derive a profit from the goods that you are bringing into the country. So if you know that you got that at R1 and you bring it in Zambia and you are selling it at R5, somebody else will also go and buy it at R1 and bring it here and sell it at R3.
But there are certain things that a local shop may not have. This is what I'm driving to. Because even you, as government, you've got the mandate to protect even the very poor, who would want not always to drink water from the tap. But because you are a listening government, you say we are not going to allow. Even a poor man there is entitled to this. So it's not so much of interference.
That's why
I'm talking about.
I hear you, I follow you, but that's where the difficulty is. The moment government says we will not allow you to sell this for more than that, that amounts to price controlling. That amounts to interfering in the free market economy. So it is envisioned that you will regulate yourself. You will know what sort of profit you want to make. But because we have made the environment healthy, therefore competition comes in. Somebody who thinks like you will have a shop and will say, there's no way I'm going to bring that for R1 and land it in Zambia and sell it at R5. I will do it at 2.5 or 3. Then we, the consumers, now will know that for me to acquire that, I will go to Pastor Chuluba's shop. It's affordable there. That is why you find that we are moving around. When we go to town, even when we are buying things for our home, you find that we don't go to one shop. You find that it's when our wives are saying, let's go and buy grocery, you even know that whatever program you have that day is gone. Because even if you leave home at 8, you are back at 16. Because she tell you, soap, I'll buy at Jumbo. This is Kamala. That is Soweto. This is Makeni. This, why she's telling you it's cheaper there. But you will tell, can you just go into this shop? Everything you want on the list is here. No.
From Makeni you go to Matero.
Yes. From there, Kumatero, Ichi, Uku. That's what competition does.
No, I brought in that because, you know, when we were constructing this church, Mr. Kawana, I went to some steel company I won't mention. I asked the price, they gave me this, that. We said, okay. And that time they were constructing stadiums in South Africa in readiness for the World Cup, so the price was up. I contacted my friend there. He hired a truck for me and paid for steel. We landed it here at 50%.
The price that they wanted
that was in here, you know. Now I did that because of the blessings of having contacts outside.
Yes. And but also at the peril of what you should have bought from him.
Yes.
Because he outpriced himself.
Yeah.
He lost your business.
Absolutely.
And the South Africans got your business.
Yes.
Competition.
So this is what I'm saying. What about my fellow pastors who is in Chinsali, who wants to build a structure and he cannot afford to bring structure, steel from South Africa? How do we help such people? Again, I speak as a pastor because my mind works with the poor.
Yes.
And I look at the complaints that go on.
Yes.
So those things that you are saying as government, you want to dictate to this, that you are representing government, I'm representing the poor
Yes.
who come to church and say, Pastor, this shushua, nikazigula pa mtengo waso. So it's from that angle that once you as a government, you also listen to us as pastors who pray with people Sunday after Sunday.
So having listened to you as our pastors,
Yeah.
this is why we work so hard as a government to ensure that we bring the fundamentals within the economy to a point where it becomes affordable. The prices begin to fall on their own. We arrest the inflation, we arrest the exchange rate, and begin to bring them down, so that then the accrued benefits go to the very poor that you're talking about. And for as long as we do the right things in as far as the fundamentals are concerned, the end product is that the prices begin to fall down, and the end user, who are the poor, who also benefit. And that's what we are doing. And that's why I'm explaining to you that prices have begun to fall down. Your pastor, who's in Chinsali building a church, is now able to benefit because the cement that he would have bought at that price before it came down was 100 bags. But because it has come down, he's now buying 168 bags at the same price, that the same quotation he was given for 100 bags. Today, the same money, when he goes back to the very shop, he's buying 168 bags. Why? Because your government is ensuring that they work on the fundamentals so that the accrued benefits come to the poor.
All the economical issues, I'll leave them for Thursday on this program. Lastly or finally, Mr. KAWANA, please educate me and through me to the nation, people who may be ignorant, as I am. I've seen that the UPND government is pricing the fuel, adjusting the pump every month. Every month it either goes up or down. Now, here's an example. I am buying the whole truck at $10,000. It's just an example, $10,000. And that truck, I take it in the underground storage, or I pump it in the filling station. That is just a week before you adjust the prices. And before that fuel finishes, or 3-4 days, I bring in 100 trucks, stockpile. And 3 days after, you adjust upwards to say the price will be of the fuel, because of the international whatever, it will be from 5 kwacha, now it will be 9 kwacha. In the meantime, I bought from the wholesale at 3 kwacha, but because I kept my stock, the government adjusts upwards. In terms of looking at the fuel industry and us consumers, what are the disadvantages and advantages of adjusting fuel on monthly basis?
Well, the advantages, for example, from the people that are selling, the advantage is that, for example, you bring in your fuel which you brought in at 1 kwacha. It lands today, and you pump it into your tanks for selling tomorrow. And tomorrow is the day that the ERB announces an upward adjustment, and with effect from midnight. So you adjust your pump price, effect from midnight, in accordance with the regulation. You have an advantage because you brought in cheaper fuel that you are selling more expensive. So you make a killing. Also, same example, you bring in your fuel at 1 kwacha, and ERB announces with effect from midnight tomorrow is 50 ngwe. At midnight, you have to adjust to 50 ngwe. The fuel you brought in for 1 kwacha, you make a loss. So the monthly adjustments of fuel are meant to provide an environment for the Zambian consumers to be able to buy that fuel at a cost-reflective tariff, meaning that whatever is happening in the two fundamentals that are main drivers of the price of fuel, the exchange rate and the price at which it is bought on the international market, is what the Zambian people are going to pay for minus being exploited. So if the international fuel prices have gone down, the Zambian people have to benefit by a downward adjustment. If it has gone up, the Zambian people have to buy it at the cost-reflective tariff. By biting the bullet, it will have an upward adjustment. What we don't want is what has been happening in the past, where you bring in the fuel, it has gone up on the international market, but you want to sell it to please the people, you want to sell it at that price, and you claim you will subsidize, but you are not taking out the hard cash to give the oil marketing companies, and you're creating a debt burden. At the end of the day, who has lost? The people of Zambia. Because one way or another, they must pay for that in Congole. So you are piling Congole. That's why when we came in, we found oil marketing companies owed over $500 million. That money has to be paid. Paid by who? The Zambian people. And we've been liquidating it slowly. Who's liquidating that? It's the Zambian people. So what this government doesn't want is to take the people back to the days where they begin to pile up Congole. We must deal with the business once and for all. Whatever the price is the price you pay for, without any Congole, without any exorbitance, without being taken advantage of. What you see is what you get.
Our phone lines are now open, dear Camnet TV viewers. You can call us on the numbers that are on your screen, 0968 675 273. That's the number for you to call us on when you are in the studio. And of course, you can send your WhatsApp message on the middle number. And where it's written prayers, you can also send personal texts, which I can read afterwards. And may the Lord bless you, and may God keep you. I am in the studio with the Director of Information at the Ministry of Information, Mr. THABO KAWANA, who each time he comes to Camnet TV family, he offloads things, educates this nation, and where you think is not adequate, the lines are open. Contribute without emotions, contribute with dignity and respect, whether you are for him or against him. How can we build this Mother Zambia together? Mr. Director, if there is any text message while we are waiting for the phone calls, please load it there so that I can start reading. Building a national family requires sincerity in the actions and language between government and those in opposition. What do you understand of this, Mr.?
Meaning that we have to be truthful to one another.
The government and opposition.
The government ought to be sincere, and the opposition ought to be sincere. So there's no need that every time government makes a good move, instead of just saying, well done, gentlemen and ladies, that's a good move, you want to find something to bite. For example, we have reinstated the meal allowance, and we have also expanded the social, the social sector. Instead of our colleagues, the opposition, saying, well done, we were under the impression that with the IMF, all these things are going away. But it looks like we are good. So instead of saying, I think we were apprehensive for nothing, and we feared what was not supposed to be feared with the IMF deal, they now rush to say, where will the money come from? But the money is being budgeted for and it's been put in the budget. So to answer our colleagues at asking us where will the money come from, the money is there. And where does it come from? It comes from prioritizing, Pastor. It's about priority. In our budget, we have decided to reinstate meal allowances, to take back that living allowance to our young people. We have decided to pay our retirees. We have decided to ensure that CDF is increased and so that development goes to the people. That's our priority. It's people, people, and then people. And our colleagues had their own priority. They could give a big budget. We are going for elections and you have got this big budget. Defense and security. Matia gas, full muvutiravani matia gas. Armored vehicles for what? Fire tenders for what?
Those are some of the things you would look at and say, for what? What about certain projects they left, which now you as UPND are commissioning? From that text, has there been a time where you said, thank you to PF to have built this and now we are commissioning it?
Well, you should understand that those things are being built at the Zambian people's expense. This is public resources.
This is what I'm saying.
And these, most of them are loans that the people of Zambia have to come and pay for. So as a responsible government, ours is to ensure that those that are worthy to continue, hospitals, for example, and schools and so on, you continue with them. But those that are cantankerous, like building a road from Lusaka to Ndola at $1.2 billion, Pastor?
No, I'm saying, for example, you have employed 30,000 teachers,
yes,
which means some schools were left by the same government.
Yes.
And you are taking those teachers there.
Yes.
Is a word of thanks to say there is a call here. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Pastor.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
My name is Obed. I'm calling from Sweden.
You are Obed?
Yes.
Okay, please speak to the nation. I have my guest here, Mr. THABO KAWANA.
Good evening, Mr. Kawana.
Good evening, sir.
My question is going to Mr. Kawana. I want to find out from agriculture policies the government has. We do appreciate that they will be giving the people from the private to people in the world. But my main concern is, definitely they can't give more than 25. But if I want to do more exercise, what are the plans, for example, if people want to do more than what they are giving? Like I want to do my state exercise, and if they give me this part of the private, that means I can't do anything. And I think this is the old people, but what about the youth? How are you going to decide to grow more? Instead of giving them 6 months, can you give them more months or somebody should come and suggest I want to do great exercise? They will give it the driver. Once I grow the major service, then I go to exercise to take that their money and I manage my manager.
I hear you.
Have you heard this
Yes,
question?
I've heard the question. So we should understand that FISIP is for the small-scale farmers. And there are qualifications that qualify you to FISIP. Basically 4. You need to have your NRC, show that you're a Zambian, of course. You need to have your 400 kwacha contribution. And you need to cultivate not more than 5 hectares. Not more than 5 hectares. Talking about 20, 30 hectares. Not more than 5 hectares for small scale. And number 4, you must belong to a cooperative. Then you qualify to be on FISIP. Now, he's asking, but what about the youth? Those of us that are energetic and we want to do more hectares. This government has provided in your budget to ensure that we open up more farming blocks. And that's why we've put in a lot of money to open up more farming blocks, the way you have the Nansanga farming block, the way you have Nakambala. So those farming blocks is where you can now find yourself there and grow your 20 hectares, and grow your 30 hectares, and government will help you there.
Let's pick up another call. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
What's your name and where you calling us from?
David.
David. David from Chama.
Yes, sir.
Please, David, go ahead and speak to the nation.
I'm a very disappointed man with Mr. Kawana there. You have asked Mr. Kawana to say, are there these particular projects which you can appreciate the bring that the government, which you are committed in yourself? They have said to answer that. You already give me examples of the Lusaka dollar. I don't think has not been done. We are even not say that. We talk about the fertilizer. Mr. Kawana, your government promised us that we will get fertilizer at 260 because you claim that you have cheaper sources of fertilizer. But you have built fertilizer at the higher price that the PF was buying. PF was buying fertilizer at $1,000 per ton. You are buying fertilizer yourself at $1,400 per ton. Or dollars per ton. $1,400 per ton. Right now, in South Africa, there is three or not three. But you cannot appreciate that we have been subdued lower because of the fear. We are enjoying that those collection fees which we want to increase from 1,000 to 9,000. How many times are we able to afford to collect? Right now, if you are living in Salala, there in Lusaka, my brother just where we are paying 2,000, it's 20,000. Now, where are you giving that electricity? Is it better or better, or you want yourself to do it? Here, those who when you want the president once again to commission another generation. Because to commission the hydro power station. Meanwhile, we do not want to do this president having this commissioning currently used in factories for processing food grass, which was then completed by PA. You yourself, you were a member of PA committee until 3-4 months before election when you joined Mr. Davis account. So what we want to demand is simply acknowledging. If you say that is taxpayers' money, why should you be boasting that you have been close to 3,000 liters, 50,000 liters? Are you using the rest of the money? Why should the government say appreciate you that you have been close? We have workers 7,000, we have been close 30,000 liters. When that is against taxpayers' money, why are you boasting? That means we have been close liters and you are using your money. Then you should also not be claiming that because for years we are saying that is taxpayers' money. For employment of teachers, we are saying it is not only that, it is not only your money. So for me, it is very sincere. You are employing teachers because they build school. You are proposing to build schools only in the thousands, not wasting and part of this. For the high school, the most part. So, if you look at this budget, which we have finished critical, your government is just to know this is the government for foreigners and multinationals using that sort of capital. Now, let Mr. KAWANA deny that his government has given full position to remind billion and you want to express the voice of 1 to 3 billion provided. Now the money be able to claim that even though they produce before they even start producing the income, this is what we have to agree. Mines will be creating VAT, Zambia will not be creating VAT. Two people in the government, look at that, this is a Christian nation. Why has the issue of homosexuality become no more prominent now? People are only reporting you are not directly. Today we have seen the rescue of families. Just for the group of parental who was abducted. But the citizen is not the police. It is the citizen who managed to rescue those people. Police only arrived there after 45 minutes. But it still is like they are just the police have rescued. So we want you to address these issues. First, acknowledge that your friends wait. You also show your own way. That's what you want to know to hear. You want to hear if you start and you start learning, you know how to start and what to start. Now we are high-rise road. Why are you not using this road so that it's subtract? Why are you not using the best to ending of road changes? You know we are one of the most road changes in this country. But we fear to get to the early generation. Now we go, we even want to go to find them. So even make it difficult for them to connect to the.
No, sorry about that. I think you heard this. Have you heard this?
No, I hear him and I also recognize the voice. I just want to say to my brother that it is very difficult to say thank you to the PF for the projects that they did. Because the question one would ask yourself is, yes, you have got roads, yes, you have got these buildings and so on, but the question is at what cost? Because that's where they store money from, and that's how this country is in so much debt. They must be thanking us for having taken measures to go to the table to talk to the people that gave us that money, that they failed to pay back, that made us a country historically in Africa to be the first one to devote, failing to pay. You get money and you fail to pay. Because they got money and did projects at exorbitant prices because that's where they store the money from. So the money they have stolen, we are now renegotiating on behalf of the people of Zambia so that we pay back the money, and we also ask the creditors to take some haircuts so that some of it is a little bit forgiven. So they must be on their knees thanking us for doing that which the mess they created, we are cleaning up. So I do not even see how they can be saying, thank us. Thank you for stealing. Pastor, these projects were exorbitant. A project worth 10,000 kwacha was built at 1 million kwacha. And they stole the money. And these are, these are characters who are being arrested now. And Pastor, you are able to see what is happening. A man is arrested. His wife, who is a housewife, she has never worked. In her account, $5 million cash. A son who is less than 30 years old, has never even been to college. $4 million cash in his personal account. Pastor, I'm not talking about kwacha. Dollars. It's a shame. Some of these people should not even be talking. They should be thanking us every day for what we are doing to renegotiate the debt which they put the country into, the debt whose monies they store. Talk about the lower Kafue. That's an MMD project. You have footage here at the cabinet of President Rupia Banda launching that, don't you? What are they talking about? We should thank PF. Now, governments are in perpetuity. We don't expect that when we leave office, in the next 50 years or so, when we leave office, a government that will take over from us.
In the next what?
50 years or so, you know, when you are delivering to the people of Zambia. Because remember that...
How old will you be?
How old will you be there? Remember that the power belongs to the people. And that's why we are very careful. We never say we are in power, we are in office. The power belongs to the people. And the people keep you in office for as long as you deliver to them. Our colleagues always thought they were in power, and they kept saying, we're in power, we're in power. They were removed using the power of the people because they stopped delivering to the people. They started delivering to themselves. We were KAWANA Mambala. So they were kicked out. We won't steal. We won't disappoint the people. So we envision that for the next 5 presidents after President Hakainde Hichilema will be #1, another 4 presidents or so, the Zambian people may be privileged enough, may be merciful enough, may be grateful enough to say, we like what you're doing, we will keep you in office with our power. The power is for the people of Zambia. So we are in office. So we continue in office. So government is in perpetuity. It continues. And that is why PF never thanked the MMD.
When we began the program, you said it would be wrong for anyone to think that all UPND are clean.
Yes.
Are you now saying that the whole PF, they were criminals? Would you say that?
For me, when I call some of the characters in PF as criminals, I'm speaking with evidence. I've just said to you here that there are people. No, I'm not saying it's the whole. What I'm saying is that there were criminals there, and there are criminals there. And I'm saying to you, Pastor, here are people who have been arrested. It doesn't concern you that a housewife can have $5 million.
No, it concerns me. What I want, because we are on this public.
Clearly, that money is stolen money.
Yes, what I'm just saying is that I want to just put a distinction to say that PF
and let me put it on record. And let me put it
criminals. Yeah,
it's not the entire PF.
That's what I was looking at.
There are characters within PF who stole a lot of money.
Because in Bemba
we may even qualify it this way, that not all PF people are thieves.
That's
okay.
You know, the media.
I'm coming, not be too quick.
Yes.
Not all PF people are thieves. But almost all the thieves who have been rounded up now are PF. You see that? So there are characters in there that stole money. But they stole so much that they crippled this country. And our role is to ensure that we pay back and we renegotiate. Because after they got those loans, they went to the creditors. And the creditors refused to meet them. They sought the IMF package and they couldn't get it because government had lost credibility. We have regained that credibility back on behalf of the people of Zambia. We are able now to renegotiate for those debts. On Saturday, Minister Musokotwane is leaving for Washington. I can assure the nation that by the end of this year or early next year, we will be able to know now exactly how much we are going to pay back after these negotiations. But remember that the precursor to these negotiations were that the people we owe money refused to talk to us and said, you are not credible. Not until we see that you are on the IMF program, then we can know that you are credible. And we proved to the IMF that we are a credible administration. And all these things that they've tried to push to try and say, no, the conditions. I have said on this program before, there are no conditions imposed on us by the IMF. We took a program to the IMF, we set the conditions ourselves, and the IMF has supported our program. This is not an IMF program. This is an IMF supported program. Homegrown solutions supported by the IMF. But who are the IMF, Pastor? We are the IMF. We are members of the IMF. It is our organization. Zambia is actually number 5 or in Africa. In fact, number 3 of the top 5 in Africa. We sit at the high table of IMF. That organization belongs to us. We are members, we subscribe, we pay. It is ours. So when
have we got enough natural resources for us to delink ourselves from IMF, or will eventually...
Hear me right, Pastor. We can't delink ourselves. We are the IMF.
No, I'm talking about borrowing.
Yeah, now,
there are no ways we can raise the money.
Even that borrowing, Pastor, remember that the value is not in the borrowed resources. The value is in the IMF coming to support our programs. What we're getting is 1.3. Our problems are almost 30 billion. Now, for us to deal with those problems, we need to have credibility. And that credibility is what the IMF is bringing to us by supporting our programs, so that now we deal with the issues. We are getting 1.3 billion. Yes, it's a loan. They're giving it to us over a period of 3 years. We begin to pay it back after 5 years. And we pay it back in a period of 10 years. So they give it to us over 3 years. After 5 years, we begin to pay it back. But as we pay it back in 10 years. At what interest rate? 0%. Where else can you get such a good deal? Now we get that deal because we are members of the IMF. We are the IMF. It is our organization. We're in trouble, we go to our organization to help us get out of trouble. And our organization says, what's your plan? And we tell them, this is our plan. And they say, okay, it's a good plan. We'll help you, we'll support you.
Let's see if there is any text coming to support what you are saying.
He also talks about homosexuality is rife. That is their agenda. Their agenda as the opposition in this country is to try and portray that homosexuality is now rife under this administration. Pastor, most of the images you are seeing are not even Zambian images. But I agree with them when they say that the reporting of homosexuality issues in terms of sodomy and so on, there's been serious reports now. The police have got those reports now. Why? Because this administration has given back the police their authority. The citizens feel free to go and report. They couldn't report in their administration because the police had no power. And they had to report.
Or could it be that in those under the PF, they were being arrested? Because we saw those people in Kapiri who were arrested and it was not mentioned. And these who are being reported here, like the mother, I don't know, have you heard of this?
Yes, that mother whose child was sodomized. Yes, what I'm saying, Pastor, is...
What has happened? Has the police moved in to round up the parents?
Yes, the police have already moved in and the case is actively being resolved. What I'm saying is that now you're hearing a lot more people reporting because there's confidence in the police, because we have restored the rule of law.
I'll come back.
You couldn't hear most of those things because you have to report to cadres.
I'll come back to you. Let's pick up some text messages. I'm glad if you say that the police are following up. I propose that dual appointments be abolished because of the problem of insufficiency. Let professionals be cabinet ministers. What do you say to that?
I think he's trying to say that you need to appoint ministers in cabinet from outside parliament so that you target.
Is that a bad thing?
If it's in the constitution, it's implemented, but it's not in our constitution.
It's not in our constitution?
No, sir.
And knowing the people in parliament, they need jobs, they can't
most people, when they go to stand as MP, what you have in your vision is MP number 1, minister
number 2, yes. So they can't vote against. No. Another text, Mr. UPND, great work for thus far. Since the new Dawn government came into power, we have not publicly heard of UPND speak good about PF. With such a stance, will UPND help to unite this nation? John.
We really want to talk good about the PF. But where is the good? Where is the good? This country was run down, the rule of law disappeared, it was run by cadres. We got so much Congole. The country is in, the economy was in tatters because they destroyed the country. So we came in and we are busy.
If you were to just pick one item to say this is good, would you find any one item in the PF what good they did?
I will go and read the newspapers from 2011 up to 2021. Give me about 3 weeks. I may find something. Then I'll come and tell you.
Okay.
For now, there's nothing.
We leave it up to there. Give us another text message. You said retirees have been paid, but voluntary retirees have not been paid for 21 years now. New Dawn government is tossing them around, even sending the police to block them from seeing the president and promising to pay peanuts. But you are saying retirees have been paid.
Retirees are being paid, retirees have been paid, and we are ensuring that we move to a place. In fact, now we have arrived at a place where we are saying, when you retire within 3 months, you are paid your monies. Now, the voluntary retirees, there are two issues there. Number one, they took the government to court, and they won the case. And the government was ordered to pay them. Now, when you take the government to court and you win the case, and you are ordered to be paid, the government pays the money to your lawyer, and your lawyer gives you. So some of them are in two positions. Some of them have been given money by their lawyers, but it is less because their lawyers claim they have taken out legal fees. Some of them have not been given anything by their lawyers. So it is a matter of them following up. And then there are also others whose issue is actively being looked at by Cabinet Office. And I saw at Cabinet News, they were addressed by Secretary to Cabinet Kangwa, and he explained to them, and their issue is being actively being followed up. So we have three categories. Those whose matter is actively before Cabinet Office and is being resolved. Those whose lawyers gave them part of the money and chewed the other part, claiming it's legal fees. And those whose lawyers did not give him anything and chewed all their money.
Time does not permit me, Mr. Kawana, for us, we are getting close into news time. One question. The PF government declared 18th of October as a day of praying for the nation. And was that bad or good?
It is good.
Has the government of UPND followed up? What are we doing on that day?
We will observe the day.
We will observe the day.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming on the station.
Thank you very much.
I've been your pastor, Pastor Moses Chilova, on national matters. And my host was Mr. Kawana, Mr. THABO Kawana, whom I appreciate so much each time he comes to the studio. If you have any question or whatever due to time, you can forward it to 0962-965-883, the number which was there for prayer. Then I can possibly forward it to Mr. Kawana to answer you. On behalf of my wife, the CEO of this great television station, on behalf of our television crew and technical people, I'm very thankful. God has blessed us with these people. The Cabinet stars, those of you that are in church, the Healing Word Ministries, standing with us in thin and thick, my wife and I love you and appreciate you. Above all, you Cabinet TV viewers, you are such a blessing. Without you, this station would not be there. Until next time, keep watching Cabinet TV, and remember, Cabinet TV is not just another channel. Thank you, Mr. Kawana, once again.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.